2020, and what we're going to do today is we're going to go over a little bit about the black magic used to rule you, and a lot of people seem to really like that topic. Got a lot of views and listens on the last couple podcasts that mentioned some ancient black magic, and people are really interested. I think they know that there's more going on behind the scenes than is shown to the public, and they want to sort of get into the occult mysticism and the occult world. Occult just means hidden, and there are various hidden aspects of psychology that are used against the public daily in media and TV, movies, government. The primary four horsemen of the apocalypse: media, medicine, science, and government. And they use a lot of psychological manipulation to get the public going where, it benefits the ruling group. And a lot of people think that the government is altruistic, but that's what the government schools are there to do, is to mind control and brainwash the children to believe that the government is altruistic. And that brainwashing comes in really handy, because nothing the government does benefits the society whatsoever. Government always makes things worse. So of course you need 12 or 14 or even 18 years of brainwashing to believe that the government is completely altruistic, that science is there to save us, that doctors are the smartest people in your area, or that toxic medication, if you take the whole bottle, you're dead, but one pill of the poison a day makes you healthier. This sort of brainwashing is absolutely part of the black magic used to rule you, and there are other aspects as well that I'm going to talk about today. There are certain groups, or what I'll call certain things or creatures, that rule us that have very particular characteristics. And there's ancient manuscripts about this group, about these creatures, about these things. And I always tell people, go back to the Bible a little bit and maybe look at the phrase, by their fruits you shall know them. What that really means is people that have walked this earth for thousands of years started to notice that the people that were power hungry did things and acted in a way and had beliefs that weren't like regular humans that were moral. And so the people of the earth would look at these humans and say, hold on a second, these people aren't like us. They have beliefs and behaviors and weird cravings and weird fetishes that means that they're a threat to us. Even though they look human, something's off. And that's why they would say, by their fruits you shall know them, because they were well aware. And the stories, there are, like I said, Indian manuscripts, Iranian manuscripts, Turkish manuscripts, all from the Mediterranean, some from South America, describing these people that definitely looked human. They definitely looked really human, and maybe they were. Maybe they just had mental defects. But regardless of whether the stories are true or not, I cannot verify them. But look, if you want verification as to these weird sort of things that are power hungry and have very different morality and ethics than ourselves, I would always advise David Icke's book, The Children of the Matrix. So I'll put that in the show notes, so maybe you can order that. It's not printed anymore. I think it's about $50 if you want to buy it. I'll put the link to that book so that you can kind of understand just how prolific this story is amongst ancients around the world, that everywhere there were humans, those humans were saying, hold on a second, this group that have been in power since I was a baby, they look like us, but they don't act like us. They're into killing. They have no particular sort of remorse. They're immoral. They take for themselves with no care for the future. They only protect themselves. They don't protect anybody else. So something's going on here. And they would say, by their fruits you shall know them, which was basically like, if you want to know if you're in the presence of one of these things, Just give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves, and they'll always out themselves with their particular beliefs and fetishes and cravings that mark them as basically almost another species on this planet. And they were extremely dangerous. Now that group has acquired power. They're basically all related by blood. If you look into David Icke's book, The Children of the Matrix, he names names and names addresses and goes over the genealogy of everybody that's currently in the positions of power. And they've always been in the positions of power. It goes back thousands of years. The average person isn't aware of this whatsoever, and they all have very particular characteristics that are not good. This group is very dangerous, very violent, very dark, and they have very particular fetishes with children and blood, and they're very sexual in very immoral ways. And this is the information that we're traded amongst normal humans, ethical and moral humans, that would say we can't allow this group to dominate us because they take our money, they take our kids, they are dark, they use poisons, they're basically an inversion of anything that's good. So anything that's good, they turn it on its head. Instead of honoring the sun, they might honor the black sun or Saturn or Jupiter. They don't protect kids. They do very dangerous things with kids, and I'll definitely put up an article proving that the people in government and in big business and in religion where these sort of things like to hide. I'll put the pedophilia article that I've wrote, which probably has about 50 or 75 citations of this group in power positions, basically having sex with children and sacrificing children in various ways, and there's children giving the testimony, children that have escaped. So don't think it's a baseless claim. The people in power have very particular dark and immoral and unethical belief systems, and that's why they sort of use the black magic to rule us. Now, manipulating humans is very easy. They do it today. I mean, if you go to, say, the Tavistock Institute or you go to a psychology book, you can manipulate humans very, very easy to make them do basically anything you want. So this group is very dark, very immoral, and if they were to come into a moral society right off the bat, they would be attacked and killed. So they have a very particular mind control, black magic agenda. And I'm going to put up about 10 mind control documentaries as well. So if you want to get into the very well-documented tactics to control a human, to make them believe anything the controlling group wants to believe, you can review the mind control tactics in these 10 documentaries. And I'll just write this down. I don't want to forget any of these links in the show notes. So these groups are very ancient. They come from what we know as Turkey today. It used to be a country called Media. Actually, the word Media. And they were masters of understanding human psychology. So what we call hypnosis and mind control and mental manipulation, they were masters of it, and they used to sell those skills to their family members all around in the royal kingdoms that stretched all the way across China, Russia, what we know as China and Russia today, Malaysia, all the way to England. And there's documented reasons why 100,000 people today rule 8 billion people, because they use the media, they use the old media techniques. That's where we get the word media from, because humans have brains that literally, if you show them 2 repetitions of an idea or a belief or a custom or a tradition, most humans will say this is acceptable and normal, and will act it out. And this is why people do Halloween and dress up their kids in like goblins and ghouls, and people aren't understanding that this is part of the mind control where, like I said, these people, things, creatures, whatever you want to call them. If you read the book Children of the Matrix by David Icke, you'll see that every culture in the world for thousands of years talked about these things, and these things are still around today. They have no intention. So this is where it begins. They have zero intention of changing. So their sort of appetite and fetish for sex with children, they like killing, they don't have any morality. Everything is about death. They're more of a death cult, so they like killing things, and they don't really know why. Like, these things don't even really know why. It's like a scorpion. Like, well, why does the scorpion sting? It'll tell you, I don't know, I'm just a scorpion. You can't really investigate the instincts of these things, and they have no intention of changing. So they have one very big plan, is to make you like them. So if you're like them and you start becoming immoral or overly sexual or violent or dark, they can finally come above ground, and there goes, by their fruits you shall know them. Because if you're like them and they're like you, and you can't tell them apart based on your human characteristics, well then, how are you ever going to pick them out of a crowd? So their agendas are ongoing, hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, to wear you down, to make sure you're like them. So let's sort of go over the mental manipulation, the psychological warfare that they do to make you like them. So let's say number one. So this is the black magic used to rule you. This is the top 5 characteristics that they hold, so they know that they're bad people, evil, dark. When there's ever a darkness or a Satan or a devil mentioned, it's these folks, these creatures, this group, and they're all in the positions of power today. And their job is to make you like them. And again, so that they can walk above ground and you're not going to have any clue, because why would you attack someone when you have the exact same fetishes, the exact same moralities? They're not going to stick out. So they're going to bring your morality down so as to cancel out any chance of you picking them out of a crowd. So the top 5 characteristics that they have, let's go over number 1. They're violent and dark. So how do they like killing, okay? They like war. So how do they make you warlike? How do they get you obsessed with, say, killing? Well, number 1, they're going to use the Hollywood media. And again, Hollywood, the best magicians in ancient times, let's say Merlin the magician, the folklore of Merlin the magician, he was said to have a magic wand, and it was made from the wood of a holly tree. So it was made from Hollywood. And this is all about black magic and the ability to psychologically manipulate. And that's where Hollywood gets its name, is it's a form of magic. And it's a form of magic. And I'm going to put up a great video by a psychology professor by the name of Jerry Croth. Now, Jerry Croth will explain how modern media, through repetition and repetitive images and symbols, can actually normalize absolutely anything. So Hollywood uses war movies and war themes, anything from Platoon to Born on the 4th of July to... You know it's flooded. The Hollywood genre of war movies is completely flooded. Anything like Tropical Thunder, it's all about war and killing. And what Jerry Croth will explain, the psychology professor from Santa Clara University in California, is that when you see repetitive images like that, it normalizes in the brain. So by seeing death and killing and war, even if it's like Avengers Infinity War and Thanos killing half the population, it completely normalizes it. And that's how they're making you warlike. That's why everybody wants camo. They want camo t-shirts. They want skulls on their tattoos. They want daggers. And all those ideas are impregnated into the person. They never come from inside. They will be coming from outside. So that's why everybody's like, the war on cancer, she's a warrior, and everything has to have a warlike, analogies and backgrounds. And even when they say like COVID-19, the nurses are on the front lines. Well, front lines is a war term. Everything's war based, and they do that because if you hear, the nurses are our frontline heroes in psychology, if you hear it twice, it normalizes it. Or the war on cancer, even when they have those little bumper stickers that say fuck cancer, it's still like, a really aggressive, warlike stance on everything. It's just an absence of love, and these creatures do not have love for life like the rest of us. By their fruits you shall know them. And then for the unhealthy food. Now, when you poison yourself, you activate, we all have a war part of the brain, and it's good it's there. It's supposed to be for defense of your tribe or your wife or your children or, yourself if you're attacked. So we'd all have a war-based brain that's irrational, it's quick to violence, it has the ability to kill, it's lower IQ, and it makes decisions that are short-term decisions based on self-preservation. And it's a great part of the brain, but you only want it activated. It's called the limbic system or the reptilian brain, the R complex. Sometimes it's called the hind brain. And that part of the brain's great when you're under attack, but it also activates when you attack yourself with unhealthy food or pollution or toxicity. So these creatures not only normalize and have you accept and mimic and mirror warlike themes and attributes through repetitive screen technology, they pollute your food, they pollute your water, they pollute your air, so that the pollution activates the war part of the brain. So you're always walking around in what's called the fight, flight, or freeze state, which means you're prone to violence, you got low IQ, you're ready to fight Black Lives Matter, screw you, and then there's a fight between that guy and that group, and it's always about fighting. You can see on social media, they're triggered to fight right away. If you don't agree with them, they fight you. There's no debate. Now, that is a primary attribute of this group or these creatures. By their fruits you shall know them. They are violent, they are dark, and their intention is to make you violent and dark as well. And that's how they do it. Number two, they're overly sexual. And if you go back through the ancient archives, the ancient manuscripts, these creatures, for reasons that are explained by David Icke in the book Children of the Matrix, and many other books similar to that. He's not the only one that writes on these ancient manuscripts and tells the story, even though these stories are trying to be hidden from the public all the time. Like I said, number two, they're overly sexual, and they prefer blonde hair, blue-eyed Nordics as their reproductive partner. So they get really sexually excited over blonde hair and blue eyes. And this obsession with blonde hair and blue eyes in cinema, if you look at most of the movie stars today, you see blonde or dirty blonde hair and a lot of blue eyes in such a greater ratio than any sort of other eye type or hair color. Blonde, the most rare eye color is like amber or hazel, and then we go down to say green, and then blue is like the third most rare, but the percentage is really low for blue eyes regardless. But if you compare the natural ratio of blue eyes in the population to the movie stars that have blue eyes, and everybody dyes their hair blonde, and the reason they dye their hair blonde is because throughout history, the people in power, which was this group, these creatures, this sort of, these things, they always would pick the blonde hair, blue-eyed ladies as their partners, because these Nordic this Nordic race has special genetic qualities that these things really seem to like it. Again, you can get this information from David Icke's book, and I've seen this and I've known this for like over a decade. And this is why a lot of blonde people today want to dye their hair blonde, because they're still carrying what Carl Jung has called the collective unconscious, where they're well aware that their genes carry the stories of their foremothers and forefathers, where being a blonde just made you're probably going to be picked out of the slavery pit to be one of the reproductive partners of these things that look like they're human. And that's why they're trying to make us like them. They're trying to make us regular people, prefer blonde hair and blue eyes, and the way they do that is because the subconscious brain of any human, if they see repetitive images and those repetitive images are enforced or positively reinforced in a very particular way, that we become like the people who rule us. We are like, oh, I love her, she has blonde hair and blue eyes, and we don't even really know where we're getting it. None of these ideas are our own. None of these ideas are our own, and they get impregnated into us by screen media. Ancient psychological warfare is being enacted upon us, and these are even documented in the modern annals of psychology, that if you want to mind control someone, you just normalize anything you want to do, put it up as acceptable, throw some authority behind it, throw some celebrity behind it, and the rest of the humans, because of the way they have the way their brain complexes are designed, they take it as gospel. And gospel too, as a bit of word magic, actually is go spell. Never figured that one out, right? Gospel just means go spell, and that's how it's spelled. Gospel is spelled go spell, and that's because the human brain, if you want to cast a spell, you only have to use repetitive wording. That's it. And some other things, some hand gestures. A lot of this is described in the documentaries that I'm going to put in the show notes. So that's another way they make us like them. So when they come above ground, we're going to be like them. So again, they're overly dark and violent. Number 2, they're overly sexual and prefer blonde hair, blue-eyed Nordics as their sexual partners. Number 3, they have no morality. That should be pretty obvious to anybody today when you look out at the Trumps or the Trudeaus. And I know people think Trump's sort of on people's side, rescuing kids from bunkers and everything like that. They're all sort of related, and I'd love for Trump to be maybe not related and sort of like a stick in the mud of this group, and maybe that's why they're trying to remove Trump. But I'll tell you one thing, if you go to the U.S., Biden would be the worst pick, because Biden is definitely with this group that is trying to do everything I'm describing right now to us. I don't really know about Trump, but Trudeau, Boris Johnson, these people are either hand-picked mental midgets, easy to control, or they're definitely inside the group, the blood lineage, which again is described very clearly in David Icke's book, Children of the Matrix. But number 3, they have no morality. And so what they do, so how do a group who is not moral, who has an agenda to make you not moral, so that then everybody can walk above ground as non-moral people, and then nothing sticks out, and there's no conflict because everybody's just as immoral. Like, how do they do that? Well, they're the one that's invented the pyramidical hierarchy in all government and business structures, which means most people don't even know where their orders are coming from, and they have no real recourse if the order is immoral or not. But the paycheck is how they do it. So the paycheck is how they make you immoral. Let's take a common example. So we'll take sex ed curriculum in schools, which is teaching now anal sex and masturbation for kids as young as 4 years old. Now, I better put that up there. If you make a claim like that, you better put that in the show notes. So we'll put the sex ed curriculum issues and know that it's an example of how they're going to make you immoral through a paycheck. That's how they're going to do it. They're going to make you like them through a paycheck, and the paychecks and control through money is guaranteed one of the agendas that they have going right now. That's why they want to go cashless, so they can increase the control, so you're not outside the control system. But let's go over an example. A very moral teacher gets given immoral sex ed curriculum to teach the children. Well, okay, so we don't have to go to, this isn't a lane of traffic technique. That's mission accomplished in 99.5% of the cases. There's no pushback by the teacher. There's no, I've never heard of a teacher saying, look, I'm not going to teach anal sex to the kids under the guise of inclusion or sexual liberation or freedom. This is absolutely insane. I've done some research, and the psychology shows clearly that this is how pedophiles groom their victims. You don't hear that. So bingo, bango, bongo, you have become like them because you don't have any ability to push back, because you can't control how you get your food. So dependency is the greatest form of control. And if you depend on government, science, medicine, and media to get your paycheck, you will become immoral. And you can go back in time. Like, these are all how all Holocaust started. The German government in pre-World War II Germany said the Jews are the problem, and every police officer and every government employee, every teacher, every sort of nurse and doctor who were paid by the German government, they were made immoral through the paycheck. Because that's how this cult works. And was there a problem with the Jews? Absolutely not. They just like killing. They'll kill anybody. They were killing people in the HIV/AIDS epidemic using a very toxic black label failed cancer therapy called AZT, and AZT would kill any AIDS patient that it was given to. Did this cult have it out for the gay community, which was targeted specifically with this agenda? Absolutely not. They just like killing people. They like killing people in these official, regaliaed, sort of celebrated, normal, acceptable ways. They love tricking humans to kill themselves, and they love tricking other people through educational degrees and paychecks to do the killing on their behalf. Oddly enough, the group that we're talking about, these things, these creatures, they actually don't even like to kill them themselves, because they have their own ancient texts that say if you do take a life personally, that which is different than hiring an assassin or tricking a human to inject poison into their own kids, that there's actual spiritual consequences in the next realm. So that's why they trick nurses and doctors and parents to say inject poisons into children, because they have their own beliefs that they're not going to do that. Even when they do their darkest rituals, they'll have a lackey do most of the dismembering or killing, unfortunately, and there's definitely documentation about that in the show notes. So that's how they will make you a not moral person, through the paycheck. So you just follow along, and then you're sort of a card-carrying member of this dark black magic death cult. Like, you're a member. If you're going along to get along with every immoral step that they do. I mean, don't forget, slavery was legal at one time, so the police would enforce the slavery. What's legal and what's moral are completely two different things, and if you're controlled by a paycheck, you'll just use the phrases like, I'm just following orders, I got to make a living, and then, but that's it, folks. You're in the cult. You're already in the cult, and they've invented the money system, the monetary system, the check system, system. It wasn't that this system of control did not exist 1,000 years ago. It didn't exist 800 years ago, so don't think it was always in play. They invented it so to make you and usher you into their death cult. Number 4, they like having sex with children. This is an absolutely guarantee. So how, and then you're like, okay, so this lecture, this 5-point list about them making me like the cult and trying to initiate me into the cult, how are they going to make me like sex with children? Well, they're already at it, folks. They're already at it through, number 1, the sex ed curriculum, which is pushing pedophilia-based grooming techniques onto the children. So they're already in your schools. That's already been proven. In the article that I have about the government pedophilia, there's a guy by the name of Ben Levins, even in my home province of Ontario. His name was Ben Levins. He was the Deputy Minister of Education under the Liberal government in Ontario, led by a man, I think his name was Dalton McGuinty. And he was in charge of the sex ed curriculum of the kids here in Ontario. And when he brought out this, and he was caught in a sting by the RCMP here in Canada, where he was recorded saying that he has sex with his 2 daughters that are under 6 years old, and that he can't wait to have sex with his grandchildren as infants, and that was recorded. He was the Deputy Minister of Education here in Ontario. And then he was caught after, like, he was charged with child porn after he wasn't the Deputy Minister of Education, or actually, it was really close if I remember correctly, but the fact of the matter is he did release sexual ed curriculum for all the children in all the schools in Canada, in Ontario, and psychologists came forward and said, oh, whoa, what's going on here? You're introducing sexual content to children who are too young to understand it, and this is how pedophiles groom their victims. They confuse them, and then they befriend them, and then they start using the confused ideology to break down their spirituality and their defenses mentally, and then it was backed out. Like, everybody was like apologizing. And there's TED Talks now about accepting pedophilia. Psychologists have come out and said it's not a disease, like it's it's going to be classified as a mental disorder. So they're not in their infancy, of course, but they're pushing you. Even in the Toronto Star in Canada here, they said is pedophilia a sexual orientation? That sort of news article is also within the article that I wrote on pedophilia. So, and they're using younger and younger sort of models in various forms of undress in many sort of like campaigns for clothes and campaigns to sell products, trying to raise your sexual energy and then wash it over the children, so that when you see children, you get an excitement from that. And when you go to pornography sites, the younger and younger models are used. So they know how to do this. They know what's called the lane of traffic technique. They're going to push you 1 lane of traffic over on a 10-lane highway, 1 lane at a time. Little bit. TED Talk about accepting pedophiles. Toronto Star articles is pedophilia, sexual orientation. And of course, the primary pedophilia-based sexual contact is anal sex with boys. And of course, they're always pushing alternate lifestyles that involve anal sex, and that, like, how it's just easier to accept anal sex with boys, with underage minors, once maybe you engage in it yourself as a human. So what you'll see on pornography sites is basically anal sex is exploding. If you were to Google the percentage of anal sex videos on the porn sites, they've gone up about 500% in the past, say, 3 or 4 years alone. So it's meant to produce someone in your neighborhood is saying, like, how can you argue against anal sex when you're having anal sex? You can't, and that's psychological manipulation. And why would people engage in anal sex more? Because of the pornography? Because Dr. Jerry Croft will tell you that if you see anything on a repetitive basis, you mimic, mirror, and emulate it, guaranteed 100%. So they know how to psychologically manipulate you to get you in the lane of traffic where they want you to go. Again, they want you to normalize and accept anal sex and sex with children and sexual excitement around, children that are in various forms of undress, and they're going to push you and push you and push you and push you. That's how they make you like them in that particular category. Number 5, it's like the black magic used to rule you. This is a death cult. How do they make you obsessed with death? They're obsessed with death. They love killing anything. They'll kill everything. That's why they say we got to kill bacteria, antibiotics, kill the bacteria. That's where it starts. And so all their death cult philosophy is disguised in science and medicine. So what that means is when you're having a baby, which is, say, natural and loving, well, they need to intrude there. They need to get their male energy, their male penile energy into that situation and poke around. They got to insert their death cult philosophy to anything that's living. If it's living, we got to kill it. And it doesn't matter. It's like even the mask wearing. When you wear a mask, you're getting less oxygen, which means millions of cells are dying that shouldn't be dying in your body. But that's the science option. So how this death cult philosophy works is they dress up their death obsessions in medicine and science. So if you take a Tylenol, millions of cells in your liver die because Tylenol is a poison. When you take a statin drug, they'll tell you it's for cholesterol, but your whole body's made of cholesterol, and you need the cholesterol produced by the liver to remanufacture, say, your cells. Like 2 million red blood cells die every second in your body, and you need the cholesterol to make the new cells to replace the ones that died. And the cholesterol is a substance that composes the outside wall of the cell. And so when they tell you to take a statin drug, which kills a particular part of your liver that makes cholesterol, you don't have the building blocks to replace the cells that already died, so it accelerates your death. But to the death cult, that's an awesome option. You're dying faster. Coffee kills cells in your stomach. They love coffee shops. They love ultrasounds, which are being proven to burn or injure the child, so they're trying to get as many ultrasounds as you can. Mammograms have been known to cause breast cancer, and I'll put that up. I'll put a movie up called The Promise, a documentary proving that mammograms cause breast cancer and accelerate breast cancer. But this is how this death cult rolls. Like, I guarantee you're probably already in this science cult, because every time there's a problem, you're going to default over to science as the solution. I'm going to feed my kid Doritos, which sort of kills millions, maybe hundreds of millions of cells. Every time I have Doritos, every time I have ice cream, every time I have pizza, you're involved in the death cult philosophy. That's why the junk food stores litter our streets. Everything is about death. Kill anything living. Like if there's live water, put chlorine in it. If there's a healthy baby, inject it with toxic poisons. When that baby gets sick from the toxic poisons injected into it, tell them they have a fake disease name and give them more poison. Poison, 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 death, 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 and every option will be dressed up as medicine and science. And this is how the death cult philosophy works, is there are problems caused by the poisoning, and then when you run into those problems, the death cult philosophy takes over and adds more poison, more disaster, more killing. And that's why they put fluoride in the water. Fluoride's proven to cause brain damage at 2 parts per million. and that's the exact amount that they put inside fluoridated water supplies. Your toothpaste has 1,500 parts per million of fluoride. It causes brain damage at 2 parts per million. Dr. Dean Burke, and I'll put that link up. I'll put up Dr. Dean Burke, proved that fluoride causes cancer. So why are we putting it in the water supply? Because this cult wants you to back it. They want you as a card-carrying member of the death cult. They want you completely involved in the death cult philosophy. Take the birth control pill, stop life. The birth control pill is notorious for thrombosis, aneurysms, heart attacks, all kinds of cancers in the body. So that's great because it'll kill the female partner earlier. It doesn't matter what we're talking about here. To the cult, death is better. Die earlier, die right away, cancer earlier. If taking the birth control pill can shave 7 years off the end of everybody's life who takes it, the cult's totally into it. And you're infertile, which means you're sort of taking away from extra life. That's a sort of watered down version of the death cult. There's killing children, which is done and documented in the pedophilia article. They do that as well, but sort of inhibiting the birth of a child through the birth control pill, that's also good. And this is what this death cult does, is people are like, hey, it must be great at science. Hey, it must be great at science. Hey, Motrin, Tylenol, birth control pill, mercury teeth fillings, Teflon pans, microwave food, cell phones, Fitbits, LED lighting. Wi-Fi in the car, Bluetooth, GPS. Science makes our lives better. Well, if science made your lives better, why are you so miserable? Why are you so overweight? Why are you so broke? It's because and that's why in school, they basically indoctrinate you into the science cult by making you work with parallelograms and triangles, and one's obtuse and one's I don't even know the words anymore, and then they have you with the periodic table, and grade 5s don't know anything about the periodic table, but it's all about science indoctrination to produce the adult. So when you see a doctor, that's like the priest of what you studied your entire life. Biology, science. And everybody's thinking, oh, this is the top level of knowledge. This doctor must know exactly what he's doing. I've studied science since I was in grade 4. I know what parallelograms mean. It seems like the foundation of a very deep well of knowledge that seems to culminate with this doctor right here. He must know so much science, he could never get anything wrong. You've brainwashed. That's brainwashing. Everything. There's one thing modern medicine excels at, and that's acute care emergencies, which means car accidents. Cut your finger off with a chainsaw. You cut your foot off with a lawnmower. Absolutely brilliant. They can there's nothing that's going to be better than modern medicine. Everything else is about poisoning you, ending your life early, and then making you believe this is your best option, that this is the best option. You eat Doritos, you have beer, you have toxic wine, you have toxic coffee, then all of a sudden, you got prostate cancer. And then instead of really trying to clean up your diet in any in a real way and take care of yourself, which is love, which is the opposite of the death cult, you go sit with your legs wide open in front of a radiation machine that blasts your prostate back into the Stone Age, and everything else. Your penis doesn't work, you can't have sex anymore. Perfect. Absolutely perfect, because we don't want you having sex, because that's part of the death cult philosophy, because it hates anything that's living. And that's why the mammograms cause cancer as well of the breast, and that's going to be proven to you in the documentary called The Promise, because they don't want kids getting a hold of that breast milk. It makes them strong. It makes them live longer. We have to make them die right away or make them die quicker. We want to shave years off the end of their life, and you see the death cult philosophy is making dangerous headway in our society by making us like them. So we're like science addicts. We can't get enough of the things that are killing us. This is the one where most people are already card-carrying members, can't even understand that poisoning yourself doesn't make yourself healthier. You can take the whole bottle of medication and die, but they believe one pill of the same poison once a day is going to make them better. Brainwashing, folks. This is why we're in the COVID sort of lockdown, is because we've been made like them. We're science addicts. We're dark. We're immoral. We're not thinking. We take orders. We're controlled by checks. We watch too much TV about killing and dying and death and rape and murder. This is what's going on. They're making us like them. We look human, and we need to maintain our humanity compared to them, or if they make us like them spiritually, there'll be no difference between us and them. So that's how they're doing this. This is exactly how they're making us like them. And we do not want to be like these creatures. We want to maintain our humanity. We want to maintain our morality. We want to maintain our independence. We want to maintain our freedom. The cost of freedom is constant vigilance, and we always have to be vigilant against this group. And we need to be independent of the system. They're trying to drag us back in because so many people are starting to generate their survival without the paychecks from the hierarchy pyramid. And that's why they want everybody now to work inside the pyramid. So when they say you gotta, make skin cream out of circumcised foreskin, which they already do, and you're at the skin cream factory, you're like, oh, well, they pay my check. I guess I gotta do it. And then when they go up to the armed forces or the police and say, hey, this PCR test, that test for COVID, which the inventor Carrie Mullis said could never test for any viral disease, you're going to go march into a neighborhood, military and police, and you're going to force everybody to take this COVID test, which can't test for COVID. And then when people fail, because basically it's like flipping a quarter, half the people will fail the test, half will pass. Neither the fail or the pass mean absolutely anything. I mean absolutely nothing, because the test can't confirm nor deny any disease. Then you're going to take the diseased folks from the fake test and, separate them from their children. You're going to quarantine them in a camp, get on the boxcar, and then folks, you're like them. You've lost your morality. You've lost your ethics because of a paycheck. You're no longer thinking. You're obsessed with death. And anything science is doing is always about death. It's always about death. And say like the COVID test for the PCR, using the PCR invented by Carrie Mullis, can never confirm nor deny a viral infection. And I'll put up a great article about that to prove it to you that the COVID test is completely fraudulent. And what they're trying to do, folks, is just they're trying to raise the infection numbers. So when you see something on the TV that the infection numbers are up, or you hear something on the radio, it's just because they did more testing. The testing is completely fraudulent. And anytime they need more numbers, like if they say, okay, they've reopened their economy for 2 months, that's enough. The vaccine we're going to have to lie to them about the vaccine. They're just going to test more. And then the numbers are going to go up. And what they're going to say, whoa, a big outbreak, 3,000 people tested positive. Let me tell you about the 3,000 people. They're completely healthy. So when you think 3,000 people tested positive, don't picture like a war zone. One guy's bent over the bush, vomiting, another guy's dead on the lawn. 3,000 people, no one's sick. But in the news, they're going to pump it up like you're really sick, everybody's really sick, they're going to shut everything down, and they're going to say, come get your needle full of poison from the death cult, we're going to inject you with poison to save your life. Now, why do these people think like this? I don't care. But it doesn't mean you have to go along with it. Like I said, it's like asking a scorpion why the scorpion stings things. Scorpion doesn't know. Why do these folks like poisoning the shit out of you and your children? I don't really have an answer. But what I do have for you is the fact that thousands of years ago, and every 100 years, there's someone writing a book about these people saying, yeah, these people like to kill and poison things. I don't know what's going on, but we got to make sure to stay away from them and make sure they don't keep getting in the positions of power, because they don't even know why they hate us. They don't even know why they poison us. They don't even know why they're trying to kill our kids. They don't even know why they're trying to brainwash our kids. They just do it. They just do. Why does the sun rise? I don't know. Ask the sun. Does it really matter? These people that are in power have made us like them through the war themes, the killing movies, the unhealthy food, overly sexual, using the movies again for the blonde hair, blue-eyed imprints. They have no morality, making us like them through the paycheck. They love having sex with kids, and they love killing kids. And if you don't know that 57 million people die on this earth every year, I wouldn't say natural deaths, but they're dying, but there's also 53 million abortions every year on this planet. Like, these people love legalizing and normalizing and getting this as accepted conduct in our society. And you'll never see a bigger pushback. You'll never see a bigger pushback when someone might just raise their hand and say, is there any other way we can address this? Even if a person says, I'm not against abortion, but is there any other way we can address this issue of literally killing children that now in New York State and even New Zealand, if the children is born alive, they can starve it to death. They can do that. Now, how did we get there? Like 80 years ago, if they said you can have a full-term child, but we're just going to let it starve to death, people would be like, hey, I really don't, I like to have a debate here. I don't think that's correct. And today, people are cheerleading that. They're absolutely cheerleading that. So where do you think we are on the lane of traffic technique on that particular issue on a 10-lane of traffic? We're on the 10th lane. And then if there's an 11th lane and a 12th lane that you don't even want to go to. So these people are making us like them. They're making debates on these issues not happen, because if you have a different opinion and would like a logical debate or even some kind of midway solution, the people will absolutely attack you, because that's what the cult's like. They don't want the debate, they want killing. So if you have a different opinion, they're going to pre-program the people with that opinion to destroy or kill you just by having a different opinion. This is where we are right now in our society, and we're going to have to start realizing that the people in power are obsessed with us not living to our full potential, not living to our full lifespan, and every generation they want to poison us more and more and more and reel us back into their systems, back into their banking system, back into their payment system. They want everybody employed on the Death Star. They want to control everybody's income, and if you try to be independent, healthy, and have a different opinion, and you would like a debate that maybe meet everybody halfway, they won't allow that. And this is where we have to really start looking at the ancient texts, ancient scriptures, and ancient warnings from our past that have told us about this group for thousands of years. We're getting manipulated, this is getting dark really, really fast with the 6-foot distance, masks, viral infections. None of it is proven to have any scientific validity. I'll even put up a lawsuit that was just filed against the Canadian Federal, all the provinces, by a lawyer called Rocco Galati, and he has sued the municipality of Toronto, all the provinces in Canada, and the federal government in Canada, because 6-foot distance, the theory of viral disease causation, mask wearing, and the closing of businesses has absolutely no scientific validity whatsoever. So we're getting back into the priest class. That's what we're getting back into, which is another sign of this cult, where we do not have elected officials, we do not have freedom, we do not have freedom of speech, we do not have the opportunity to reel in corrupt state employees, because our state representatives are elected officials, even though it's a complete fraud to begin with. Our elected officials has handed over our bodily autonomy to the priest class, to medical officials that refuse to validate any of the recommendations they're doing or show us any of the science that would legitimize any of the recommendations they're giving the public. We're falling back into the priest class. We're falling back into a situation where we have a ruling dictator, which will be a medical priest in a white lab coat instead of a black robe, and the law will be, it is so because I said so. And it took us thousands of years and tankerfuls of blood to remove the priest class, and this is how far the indoctrination has gone. We have the average person begging to be removed back to the priest class and be fully controlled for a virus that does not exist. And that'll be proven in an article I'm going to put up about, basically that the government and media are fabricating the complete COVID issue, all the way from the virus itself to the death rates to the infection rates with the fake PCR test. This is Jason Christoff signing off. I hope you enjoyed that podcast.